It's starting. Hello, this hangout on air is live. Thank you for joining us and welcome. I spelled that wrong, I guess. To OreAni 2019 Winter Season Part 2. I forgot the E in welcome. Um, Short cast today.
I'm not short, I'm tall.
Might be due to the Super Bowl going on right now. But seriously, if you're an anime fan, you shouldn't be watching the Super Bowl. I'm just playing. Actually, I kind of enjoy it. Um, I like to figure out who wins and who loses so I can know who to watch out for and see if they're crying at work. There's a lot of people that get into fights at my job over football and everything. I wouldn't say fights, but probably arguments. Well, but continuing on. With me today is Nick.
Yo.
With some kind of drink.
And the drink is coffee, man.
Me with my purple juice, or grape juice, whatever you want to call this thing. It's purple.
I can't see, I don't see you. By the way.
I'm doing it on purpose. You'll see me eventually. We're just going to go over some titles. I apologize for last week. Technical difficulties with YouTube. Actually, it's not YouTube that was having problems with. My computer's having problems. And it cut out short early. So we didn't get to hear the whole spiel on Mob Psycho 100%.
And I say we don't finish it this week either.
Yeah, Sean's not here, so maybe we'll hear about it at the end. But from pretty much what I heard, it's the same old good stuff, right? So today we're going to talk about a new release that I think only had one episode released right now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like an OVA or something.
Two.
Oh, there's 2 episodes now?
Yep.
Oh, I'm behind. Oh no.
And they're it's a weird pacing too, and I'll tell you why in a little bit.
So here it is, Manaria Friends.
Manaria Friends, or as we're calling it in English, Mysteria Friends, maybe? I don't know if Friends is in the title. Or as an accurate title, what is it, like the Shingeki no Bahamut, or maybe Shingeki's not in it, but the Bahamut that we had like the 2 seasons of. It's like a spin-off of that, and I'll tell you why again in a little bit.
Can we really say that we're calling it Mysteria Friends, not just Crunchyroll calling it that?
Well, there's a reason, and again, when you're ready for me to take off, I'll take off.
So, go ahead, take off.
Alrighty then. So this one it's kind of weird for the American audience because, as I said, essentially the Bahamut series was an app game that Cygames made. You downloaded it on your phone, and it was like one of those combat, draw characters type of games that I think it's still running over in Japan. It's kind of hard to say because we had it over here for a little while, but they shut down the servers in 2016, meaning you can't play it in the US anymore, at least like localized to the US. If you had the Japanese account, you might still be having fun with it if you could do Japanese. Anyway, apparently the characters that are behind this show were made for that Bahamut game as an event. I'm not new to this concept. I've played events in games all the time, and while you can have a unique cast introduced, the interesting thing about Bahamut was, I don't know if we ever saw it because I wasn't an avid player. However, in our market right now, there is one Cygames property. It's called Shadowverse, and it is kind of like Yu-Gi-Oh! That the company just took a lot of their characters that they had and made a card game out of that like property mashup. So something like that Legends game that Elder Scrolls put out, or like Hearthstone, I believe, from the World of Warcraft, kind of puts it into the vein of what this game is. And that's the one game that you can officially play from Cygames that does have these characters in it. If you play a mage deck ever, you're probably going to be fighting a Mysteria Friends deck, because that's like the only thing I ever run into when I play the game ever so lightly. Anyway, apparently in the lore of the app game, the school was supposed to be this an entity or a place where you go and you just learn about magic. They didn't care if you were an angel, a demon, a human. It kind of like was in this like neutral, non-aggressive area where they just care about learning about, like, it's just the university, it's just a school. Leave all your biases about people at home. And so while I am somewhat glad to be introduced to the story, and I think I'm going to watch it because, as we said, it's releasing kind of oddly. There's, I don't know if it's going to get a weekly release. It might. I wasn't watching it that closely, but it's timed at like what, 15 minutes an episode. So it's like not the shortest of shorts, and it's practically full length, but it is still a short. So yeah, that's kind of like the premise of it is, as I said, we're introduced to Anne, who seems she's going to be a main protagonist, who, with like one of her friends, is Greya, the like half dragon princess, or I don't know, I forget if she's royal. No, Anne's the royalty, I believe. So like I vaguely ran into all these characters while playing that one card game, and now it's like I said, it's interesting to see their backstory, but like I don't think it's like a strong contender to be a great anime because it's just fleshing out a side story of an app game. So the interactions seem like it does seem like it's like an OVA every episode where it's trying to like show the characters off in a way that I guess it expects you to be somewhat used to them already. I think if you were watching it not knowing who anybody was, going into it for the first time, it's kind of a weird story to get into. Like, it is my impression that I got from it, because you're just seeing these characters run around. They weren't really given like the development that they should, because like I said, it almost seems like they're giving you like the flavorful stories that these characters happen to get into without taking the time to introduce everyone properly, is the vibe that I got from it.
So, as someone that has no idea about anything, I'd even watched the Bahamut or Rage of the Bahamut.
That's what it was.
So, I have no idea um, any of that. I know you mentioned something about Fabio or something.
Well, Favaro or something was one of
Favreau.
the. Yeah, I forget his name by now, but it's like that was a really interesting one because I've seen a lot of game adaptations. It's like they just took the characters and literally made a pretty in-depth story around them instead of just being a here's a loose adaptation around how we like can correlate game mechanics into a story with characters that are hard to make the protagonist. Like they just chose a character, made a protagonist, made a lore story. And I don't think it actually like I can't say I played Rage of Bahamut enough to know if that was the story you were given in the game, or like I said, they just made a story from the properties that they had, and it just had more production value than a lot of other these like types of these stories usually do. This one a lot less so.
So, yeah, someone who has no idea anything about this, I the only thing I thought about this show was it looks pretty. It had some really great scenes, picturesque scenes that were just like dazzling. It's somewhat weird to see how they fit so much detail into her tail at some scenes, and then at other scenes it looks totally different. So um, I understand that, but I like it when they have it looking really detailed. And I think it was, I can't remember if an old friend of ours, Chris Dorsey, really loved those scenes where with the girls putting on the stockings. One of our friends had that. So they had that scene in here. So if he's going to be watching in the future, this is one of your shows. But it seemed like Anne was this overpowered, crazy girl with a lot of power. Um,
Yeah. Like if you could.
Who's just becomes friends with Greya because of her laid backness, and she doesn't, I guess, have to um, be, the top of the top around her. She can just be loose with her, and that's what it kind of seems like. And it seems
Yeah,
like it'll
like
be a fun friendship with them too.
my impression of those characters is like they were like the super ultra rare ones of that time frame. So like they're the reason that you're doing a bunch of draws to get like the powerful characters. Because like even in the Shadowverse, while they do occupy a lot of the really rare characters, there's only one outside of them who like takes that ultra rareness and kind of matters. So I just imagine that they were like the big two, and like a lot of the other characters were like the next step down rarities that had to be introduced just to kind of flesh out the release of the event.
So my only question would be, until I see more episodes, is like, is this all going to take place within that school or that building that they're in?
I think that's the
Because like
intent, yeah.
first incident happened inside a library there, and it doesn't look like they'll be venturing out much. I could be wrong. Like I
Mm-hmm.
said, it's only been one episode, so it's really hard to tell where the focus of this show is going to be. Is it just going to be school life, daily life, with a little bit of incidents happening here and there, and they help resolve it? That's what I'm getting right off the bat. But
Yeah, and something I just realized I forgot to cover is apparently when the event was localized for us, if it was before 2016, um, apparently in Japan, these characters are called Manaria for whatever reason. Like I haven't been listening enough to know if that's what the school is called, but it looks like the team that localized it for us decided upon Mysteria. So like when I play the game Shadowverse, they're all Mysteria characters and they have Mysteria effects. And that's why I think there's a push to kind of call it something different than like the way it was localized for Japan, because like they technically do have a property that's in English that uses the Mysteria tie-in instead of the Monadia. So I think that's like the sole reason. Maybe just sheerly because of Shadowverse right now.
so just overall, it's a really amazing visual show to me, at least. As far as the story and everything, we'll just have to see how it goes. But there's not too much information given right
Mm-mm.
off the bat. But let's go ahead and say that's it for Manadia, friends, and move on to another title. Now, before you say anything, here's W's or
Wise. I know it like looks like Y
Y's.
apostrophe Z, but like it's WIZ technically. Wise.
Now, before you get into your thing, do you mind if I say something real quick about this?
Go ahead.
I think it's on Amazon Prime
Is
or
that it? Okay, there's a pause. I'm like,
yeah, I'm trying to remember now actually where I saw it. I think maybe it was VRV. I can't remember where I was watching it. But I didn't know anything about this. I didn't even read the synopsis. I didn't even really look at the picture. I'm just like, okay, here's the next title. Let's check it out. And I started playing it, and I'm like, hey, this has some nice music. Hey, yeah, this might be interesting. Wait, what are they talking about? Holding hands and what? No, no. Ah. And then I just stopped it right when I heard handshakers. I'm like, screw this. I'm going to the next title.
much like yourself, I wasn't aware that there was going to be a next season of Handshakers at all, or that it came this season. I do tend to watch shows blind as well. When I first watched it, I was like, oh, hey, Go Hands did something because they have a really unique visual style. While they use 2D animation, they have a lot of like overly saturated and high contrast between light and dark images. Like there's a lot of shading and not quite cell shaded, but kind of getting to that almost video game aesthetic because while they do focus on 2D animation, a lot of their backgrounds tend to be pure CG. So there's a lot of intricacies about their set pieces, and I always liked their visual appeal. While I did like watching K, the work that they did mostly before they did Handshakers, I hated their way to tell like a nonlinear story. And Handshakers kind of had the same fault. They started telling a story about like where a perspective from a character who had amnesia was involved, which is kind of like what they did with K as well. And their storytelling is just like so not bad, but when you linearize a story, it's just better. And I kind of wish that they would ground themselves and do something really linear. I also think Handshakers lost a lot of people because the first episode one, the combat involved like a really weird chainy bondage kind of looking character, and that's really what it was not about. Once that fight was over, that the characters kind of, well, actually, let me just get into the story here before I go into the faults of handshakers. So Wise starts up with a very crude explanation of what handshakers are, and you're introduced to pairings of characters who have, like, the motivation of handshakers are supposed to be people who join hands, get thrown into like a parallel dimension of the exact location that they're standing in, and go into combat with another pair of people in an attempt to do kind of like a battle royale story, where if you accrue enough wins, you get to meet like a deity god and have a certain wish come true. But the moment you lose, you just simply like lose your handshaker power. There's not like a lot of stakes like where We Cross was, where they put a lot more negative drama to losses there. And handshakers is just, well, you don't get your wish magically fulfilled, return to your normal lives. And that's pretty cool. Well, not cool, but that's the story as it is. It's at least good that there's not a demerit to losing a fight. Wise starts up years after Handshakers. Like, I actually don't remember having a conclusion to Handshakers. And the story right now seems pretty linear, but it can go back at any moment and tell a nonlinear story. It can fill us in on the events that happened 2 years ago. Right now, there's no characters with amnesia. You're introduced to a character who is, I think, technically the son of a pair of handshakers who I thought should have lost their power by then, but I don't know. And he's kind of unique because normally when you're a handshaker, you have like a fated partner. It's like someone who you're almost going out with or who's closely related to your life. It's usually not just, random Joe off the streets who you're just compatible with. And that's kind of what Wise establishes. There's a character who doesn't have a partner, but anybody he joined hands with, he kind of get launched into the world of the ziggurat, which is that parallel dimension I was kind of telling you about. And unique to him, he can generate the weapon that you get when you go into the ziggurat, typically described or called a Nimrod for whatever reason. But the person he brings along with him isn't able to generate a weapon. And when he exits the ziggurat, the person like kind of gets amnesia about what happened in the ziggurat, and they don't remember anything about it. Unique to him, though, he seems to be able to bring nearby objects with him into the ziggurat, something that many other handshakers can't do. So he's actually an up and coming, or he's like in middle school going on high school or something, maybe even college, I forget, probably middle to high. And he wants to be a DJ. So he filmed like a YouTube video from inside the ziggurat for its crazy visual style, which again is somewhat unique to Go Hands here. And a lot of the other handshakers were able to recognize he was in the ziggurat. He brought something with him. He has this weird power. It might help us win. Let's go after him. So now he kind of has to do this. He's targeted by other handshakers who, want to win, because every time you win, you accrue more power and you get closer to meeting God, who should grant your wish. And eventually we're introduced into the old cast from Handshakers. I thought that they weren't going to be too correlated into the story, but yeah, by like episode 3, most of the cast returned. And that's where it becomes a little bit more important into knowing the backstory of everybody. I can't say that if you wanted to jump into this one without watching the prior season, it would make 100% of sense. At first, it seemed like it was going to be a pretty unrelated story where you would have been okay without needing to have watched season 1. But I kind of want to hold off on that until I see a little bit more to know by the end of this if it really will benefit you from being introduced to the characters cold or needing to have prior knowledge to understand a lot of stuff by the end of it all. One of the motivations of the characters in this particular story is that while a pair of our 2 protagonists from the first seasons were able to meet God and have a wish granted, apparently, the other pair, she had a twin sister and someone else who was her handshaker, are seemingly lost in the ziggurat itself. So in an attempt to find this person, the the gist is that the main protagonist of this show is teaming up with a lot of the ex handshakers from the first season to search through the ziggurat for the missing people. And I love its visual style. The colors are great, the music, a little bit more attention than a lot of other shows. And I know my friend Tank over here is kind of a budding artist. He asked us to keep a lookout for any scene that we would just like want him to try to make like some of his artwork of. And it's so hard for me to recommend something like this because while there's so many scenes that look great, not just in the combat, but side scenes too, since the CG is used to construct the background, they're very, very intricate and not like as simple as a lot of other animes. So I've been kind of like holding back because like not only did I want to submit a lot of scenes from this show in particular, I would like look at the background and just kind of go, ugh. Like, that seems really complex. I mean, you could ignore the background, but I really like Gohan's. While I'm not a huge fan of the story K, I did somewhat like Handshakers, and this season two only like affirmed me even more into the series that not a lot of people initially liked. So I can say I really enjoy it. Not gonna say it's the best darn anime out there, but it's really unique to me, and I personally really enjoy it.
I see. Um, what were you saying? What's the Nimrod?
Nimrod is just the weapon. So like when you are a handshaker, the way you construct combat in this battle royale is unique to the person. In the first episode, you remember there was like a chain user who kind of had like the chains and with the one character. Um, there was a character who used tarot cards to do combat, and her partner was like a card gamer, so he had like a deck of card gamer cards. In our protagonist used gears, and his partner at first didn't. And this is the first season, didn't really have a clear Nimrod, but she kind of developed one complementary to his and was really similar, where it just made a more complex gear. And he always kind of pulled out this sword at some point that was like composed of gears held together by a metal structure. And like he would use the sword or his other gears to kind of accelerate his movement through the ziggurat. The weird thing in this series is our protagonist of this show that I'm blanking on the name and I just didn't pull it up to use it as a reference, my bad, can seemingly use the character's gear sword. Like he doesn't use the gears the same way that the first protagonist from the first show did, but his like weapon that he mainly uses, which he's instantly able to dual wield, is like spot on a copy of that thing. And I don't know the significance of that. One of the interesting things is where I was around episode 4. I haven't watched the newest 5 that just came out like yesterday or today. That character was reintroduced. Tazuna was his name. And he is seemingly going to join the protagonist of this series in the Ziggurat. And while he still has his full gear power, I was just kind of wondering how that was going to work with the near mimic that the new protagonist seems to kind of somewhat have. Like, is there something there? What's going on? So yeah, I can go over. There's the weird thing about this series is I think in the last show, season 1, a lot of the pairs of people were usually male female. Like that was the kind of ratio. You had a dude, you had a girl. In this series, it really introduced kind of like the polar opposite to that. There are two teams that are nothing but two guys, and one team that's nothing but girls. So it kind of seems to have this weird and like usually those relationships seem somewhat affirmed. Like the girl team are really kind of into each other. The guy teams, one of them's like a butler and master kind of a pairing thing, which that's all over BL, but they don't really seem into each other. But I'm not into enough of that side of things to know if there's like something there or not. But like that's a typical pairing in that thing. And the other pairing is like, I don't know, I forget. I think it's like two people who just kind of want to live off the grid. Like they don't have like some kind of iconic BL-esque deal, but they are two guys. So that was again an opposite of season 1, which usually had mixed gender pairings.
So the only thing that I want to add to this is, although all the Go Studio Gohan titles have been kind of strange and weird
Mm-hmm.
that not a lot of people have accepted. Just don't forget that it did create SYD, which is one of the best comedy animes ever. Oh my god, this show is so hilarious. And it actually has about, I know there's definitely 2 seasons. I wonder if there's 3, I can't remember, but it was one of the most fun anime titles out there. Um,
Yeah, but like that one seemed to actually emphasize on their comedy as like a polar opposite to the current emphasis, which seems to be on a weird story with a highly unique visual style that usually involves a lot of like metallic light gleam tones and just like I said, that attention to oversaturated yet still high contrast color. Like, oh my gosh, the show on an on like one of those 1,000 nit HDR displays. Like that's almost what you want to show to people as like how great anime can look at the visual style alone. Not saying much for the story, but to watch this thing in combat on like 1,000 nit brightness HDR display is crazy.
mhm. I just wanted to let people know about SYD
Mm-hmm.
because they're great.
Yeah, but like the backgrounds, colors, tones didn't really match like K and Handshakers, right? Like that wasn't what that show was about. Like it's just so weird how they have that duality about them.
Hmm. Well, let's move on, shall we? From Handshakers going on to the next title, which I'm just gonna pull up on my own here, which is called
It
what?
was Wise, by the way, not Handshakers.
Well, whatever. Handshakers, Wise, the same thing. Next title we have here is Fate Stay Go and the Little Lollies.
Yeah, sure.
I'm just kidding. No, it's Watashi ni Tenshi ga Mayorita, which I have no idea what they're calling it in Crunchyroll. I should look that up one day. Let me see here. Maybe they're calling it the same thing, but it's got the main character, which is Miyako, which is the adult in this group. I don't know how old she is. She's, she's definitely in her 20s, I believe, right?
I
Or
only tried episode 1.
oh, you've only tried episode 1.
Yeah.
So, she has this. She's like a, what is it? That term, hikokomori, right? She doesn't want to leave home. She hardly ever leaves home, and she's got her little sister, which is in elementary, that's infatuated with her. Always wants to sleep with her. Um, Always doing everything she can to help her older sister, her good for nothing older sister. And one day she brings a friend over, and Miyako just falls in love with her, um, just wants to dress her up with everything she can. Of course, um, and her name is Hana, and she just absolutely hates it, and is actually afraid of Miyako because of she gets this really, large. She gives off a very pervy vibe in a sense, where she's drooling every time she wants to take pictures. She's like on the ground doing this upshot. Um, so it's a heavily comedy show, and eventually we're going to be seeing some more cast members. They got a next door neighbor that moves in that's also an elementary school girl that actually catches Miyako cosplaying, and it's hilarious how the just different situations and how things go on, and it's very common tropes in comedies, I would say, that happens in the show, but it's just very lovely and just very fun. As I said, Hana hates this. She doesn't want anything to do with Miyako, but then Miyako always gives him candy and these sweets, these cakes, and
Yeah,
then
like usually on the pastry side of
yeah,
things.
Hana then realizes that Miyako's the one that makes this, so the only way she could ever get such tasty sweets is to become this plaything for Miyako, even though she doesn't want to, and it's just
Okay,
it's
plaything
hilarious.
sounds terrible there, but
But that's what she really is.
kind of.
And Hinata, this little sister, um, is just lovely. She's always just bright, cheery girl. It's just fun, the different characters that they're pulling in so far. It's not super, I guess you would say, uh,
Ecchi.
etchy. No, I mean, I don't really see it as an etchy title, especially from some other ones that I've seen, like the what was that shoji one that happened a few years ago,
I don't know. I can't think of it.
or he takes an elementary girl and becomes her teacher, and that one has all these risky scenes. You're like, it's kind of awkward watching this. No, there's no awkwardness really in this show. It's mainly just fun, pure heartiness, and I don't know if it's because it's all girls versus a guy and being mixed, because that's how these lolly shows tend to be, where there's that
Oh, shogi. I thought you said shoji.
show.
Jesus.
Yeah,
Yeah, I remember that show a little bit.
because these really weird lolly shows, there tends to be some kind of guy in the mix, while this one doesn't have any guys in it. So
Jeez. Going back to some roots, do you remember anything called Battle Programmer Shirase?
yeah, that's another really weird.
Well, that one's like so old at this point.
They had the and what was it? 3P was another lolly kind of title.
Oh, the band, like the Orphan Girl Church band thing.
Yeah, and then there's that basketball thing where even in the ending song, they had the lines "Elementary school girls are the best," which was oh my god, I wouldn't have used that line in that kind of show. But this show's been very fun, and like I said, making fun of it as Fate Stay Go. The main sister kind of has this look, kind of like Mashu from Fate Stay Go, the Shielder. So there's been a lot of jokes about her being that. So, and honestly, that's where my head
Wait. So she's like kind of like a shield bro, but not really because she's a girl.
oh. But moving on, it's a fun comedy, and I would definitely say it's not for everyone, but I would say give the first episode a shot. If you find it somewhat funny, you might be able to continue on and enjoy it. So we'll see how things go. Hey, it looks like we got someone jumping in. Hey, we can't hear you, but
Oh, geez.
it's Bunny Evans.
We got I think a Girls und Panzer virtual tuber with us here.
That's me.
Oh, there we go. Hey, we're talking about what is it? Watashi no tenshi ga
Majorito.
Mayoita.
The Moe Blob one.
Yeah. Have you seen that show? Or where's the list? Let me pull up this list and see.
Hey, quick reference before we keep going with you. I just finished my piece on Wise, and how dare you call it a BL show? Like, I could see it, kind of, but that's not its premise.
Isn't it a boy band show?
No.
I looked at one. I think I looked at one episode, and it's like,
Yeah. No, it's season 2 of Handshakers, really.
Oh.
Yeah. And that's kind of what I was agreeing, not like agreeing with you there, but like just to throw back into that a little bit, I'm totally taking Tank's piece a little bit here. Was I just mentioned that in season 1 there's a lot of boy-girl pairs. In this second season, there's a lot of same gender pairs. 2 teams are 2 guys, 1 team's 2 girls. And there is kind of that concept of same-sex partnerships, and that's fine, but it's just kind of weird how like that's again not the premise of the show. It's just like kind of more of a coincidence in how they handled season 2. So I don't
Maybe
think
they
that's like an overall statement on anything. It's just the cast that they chose. You know, like,
maybe they
since we
like
have to pick somebody.
I don't know. Looking at Bunny Evans' characters makes me want to feed it Pocky.
This is actually a face rig.
Yeah.
I think it's that button. Nope, not that button. This button. No, I can't find the buttons to control it. Or that. It's it very much needs you to face it, right at the camera. So if the camera is not directly in front of you, it doesn't work at all, and it just looks weird. The mouth just moves randomly with noises.
Yeah, I'm not an extensive user of FaceRig, but I did check it out a lot more when it was close to its like early status, when it was really glitchy with a bunch of stuff. I don't know if that ever smoothed out, but
it does behave itself, but I mean, it was a choice of this one or Claudia from Windows.
So, what did you think of the You wrote Lolly on this rather than Moe Blob, but
It's like it's just like too many little girls. It's one of those like basically all girl shows, so it's obviously written by a guy.
Yeah, I honestly don't think it's
a prick.
For me, when it becomes a lolly title or a really risque lolly title is when they have a guy in the cast. But since there's no guy, it's just Moe.
the harem collection type stuff.
Yeah.
Well, it's like weird because like it's marketed usually like as a harem piece, but it also tries to like attain this weird element of like innocence where the guy is somewhat like, no, this is just like, I'm their mentor. I'm not like this datey person, but it totally goes into those scenarios where, datey-esque things happen anyway.
Moe Blob pet.
Yeah.
So did you want to say anything about the show, or do you want to move on to the next title?
Oh, knock yourself out. Go straight ahead.
All right. So, that was I can't even remember the title anymore. Who cares?
was
Watashi ni tenshi ga mayorita, I guess.
We'll move on to this title that's not many people have seen because I don't think it's really streaming out there that widely. Circlet Princess.
Oh Jesus, this thing.
Oh come on, it's great. It's absolutely fabulous.
That's
sarcasm.
Yeah, like oh wow, Silverlink. Oh wow. So I will say that I think this one is like Netflix, because that's usually like a reason why it doesn't release like simulcast in the US as if it's like a Netflix title, because like they wait for it to all come out and then they bring it over, or some, I forget what their usual strategy is. But point is, yes, this one I think is hard to watch if you are a mainstream subscriber on, say Crunchyroll, like however you watch your anime. It's going to be hard to watch this one. I wanted to check out the first episode because it kind of gives this premise of, like, if you look at its synopsis, it's like it is at a time where a major sport has just been made involving augmented reality. So it's kind of like, whoa, the first augmented reality sport. What would that be like? So it drew my interest by being too modern day and not being able to kind of deliver. And kind of what I mean by that is I've watched tons of shows like this where they make up sports with some kind of a fantasy element. One of the last ones I really did like was the Aokana no 4 Rhythm, or I don't know if I missed something in its title or not. But AR is kind of starting to become a thing over here. We're still really high into virtual reality, and we're trying to make that work. But like Microsoft has a product, there's somebody else who's making an AR headset. But that's the thing. In order to access augmented reality, we typically need headsets. So I kind of wanted to watch this show, as how they implement an augmented reality sport. I'm really putting this thing to like a comparison of real life standards, and that's really not what I got. So if you were drawn in by thinking of like a sport existing soon, you're going to be really disappointed, because while it paints an interesting future, you're first met to these hologram like displays that kind of exist everywhere. One of the first questions that entered my head was, how are they pulling this off? Is everyone wearing contacts? Are there like projectors hidden everywhere in society? How are they materializing this augmented reality element? And it seems like it's set kind of early into augmented reality taking off. There's a lot of virtual signs, and there's a lot of like plaques still left around in society. While we can digitize the information and make it AR, there's a lot of old school physical banners still kind of left over. And it doesn't really answer how it pulls off augmented reality so seamlessly. And the sport that was introduced, I kind of had issues with too, because one of the concepts of augmented reality is you're supposed to be able to just, like, one of the selling concepts is you slap it on, you're in a room, and a game generates around you. In this context, a character has to like enter a specialized flat field where mostly the game can just kind of take place from there. It almost seems like better apted to be virtual reality than actual augmented reality. And what further confuses this is this sport is kind of like a gladiator style combat system where, a person gets a weapon generated and you go clash, and it's like Soul Calibur from there, kind of. But that's where I start having problems again, because as these characters are combating, okay, so like augmented reality exists in such a way where a weapon generates in my hand, but it's really a hologram. There's nothing physically there. Yet these characters are clashing swords. So normally what you would do, if you imagine both my fists here as being on two separate people and not just me, is when two things come into contact, the fact that they're physical causes you to stop. But in this anime, you almost have to like pull your own punch, so to speak, to make that look practical. Because if it was just a hologram, you're just going to go straight through. Your arm has no reason to stop. And that's where I find it kind of breaking, where sure, it's the sport, but like as a character gets hit, they kind of have this like physical, like, they're throwing themselves to the side. And it's so hard to kind of, as a viewer, accept that either like, is the character just like flinching because like most people flinch when a weapon gets close to them, or like is this like one of those weird paintball things where you just have to like live action role play, or just kind of accept that you have to play along with what you visually see, and you can absolutely not, but that would kind of break the lore of what game you're trying to play. So like I just had issues with it conceptually, but if I don't analyze the pieces trying to pull off an actual soon to happen AR game that caught on as like not just sheerly an esport, it's still not the best show ever.
So maybe you should think of it kind of like the Star Trek holodeck, where even though it's holograms using force fields and barriers, they're able to make things real and have physical.
Well, it would help if I knew anything that much about Star Trek, but sure.
So
but again, like they didn't really explain.
Like I'm just saying. But
so to give this show at least some kind of a positive element, what I saw in episode 1, not like really a spoiler, but something that was intriguing, that almost enticed me to watch into episode 2 and 3 and then on, is a character goes to a school that was supposed to offer a really good team for the sport. Yeah, sure, that's a pretty par for the course story. But what we were introduced to at the end of the series is that I guess teams aren't the game is non-standardized. You kind of have developers who generate your weapons and what they can do. And a character tried something, implementing a new aspect of her weapon that wasn't really tested as stable yet. So she tries to implement it, and as a character counters it, it literally caused a system error, and the game degenerated around them. And apparently, I guess that doesn't happen often. Maybe it's never happened before. It's really interesting to think that a coder created a weapon that its clash caused the whole thing to just shut down. Like, that was pretty cool, but I don't think that's going to be a reoccurring element in 2, 3, and 4. I don't think they're going to extrapolate on these really cool thoughts that much about, how you are able to code. Like they just kind of let you come up with whatever. Like the game doesn't really ground itself into the regulation, and that's fine. It just made me kind of go, it's not the piece that I wanted it to be. And I noticed a lot of shortcomings in animation all over the place. I liked how they displayed how elements of augmented reality blend into society, but at times the character was like stop motion walking through a city sequence, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. It's, episode 1. And another scene when she was entering her dorm, again, I haven't watched it in episode 2 and 3, and I don't necessarily intend to, and I'm going to absolutely blame the fact that this stuff's not mainstream being released over here. I don't want to watch it all in one 12-episode chunk, so I'm probably not going to put in the effort to watching it in a subpar quality way. I just, this type of show, I'm comfortable enough with just saying, if you had a mainstream release, I might have watched it. Since you have a complication, I don't mind missing out. But there's a scene in which a character was knocking on the door, and a character went to like open up her window and kind of like, greet the person. And it was so weird because like you can see the silhouette of the person waiting at their window. Like there's a second of not delay, but like the room was dark and she's just standing there. And all of a sudden, like without her moving her arms, the lights just kind of cut on and she opens the window. And it's interesting because they don't really see, like we see a society which augmented reality is trying to blend seamlessly into, but it doesn't acknowledge how we interface with stuff. Like there wasn't a lot of virtual assistants that these people were using. There wasn't like the Siri, Bixby, Google Assistant that were really facilitating a lot of this. It was kind of cool because the character had a computer that was like just a keyboard, and it holographically just generated the display. So you're just kind of carrying around this keyboard that can hologram out the display. I'm like, all right, that's kind of neat, I guess. And one of the other things that they kind of did is instead of having like a cell phone, everybody's phones were kind of condensed into what seemed to be a bracelet piece that you would kind of like put your hand on and physically interact with somehow. And we are actually approaching a point right now where our wearable technology, you don't necessarily have to physically interact with. Google is actively working on a project. I forget its name, but I think it starts with an S, like Sore or something like that. It doesn't really have to, I forget what it is. Soli, I think it is. And it adapts radar technology into these like our modern day devices. It's not implemented mainstream yet, but the premise is going to be that your device is basically going to emit a radar-like signal out. And as you move your hand to interact with it, it just can see what your fingers are doing. And it's interesting because you don't need camera and light for it to have noise grain airs, but it just works with proximity physical interaction. So their premise is as you hold your hand over your device, as you like twist buttons, the app can, or the device can pick up on your hand doing this and in software apply what you're supposed to do. Or you could like do the gesture. It's very gesture based. So like as you move your hand around like this, you scroll on your digital display. And they didn't really adapt this into the anime. I think like the air gesture based control was kind of necessary in something like this, instead of you putting a physical hand on this tiny device to interact with your data rich physical screen up here. It's like, what are you guys doing?
I think you're asking too much of someone that's making anime.
I know. That's what I said.
But all I have to say is that I'm going to sell this to whoever doesn't know about the show as something close to Angelic Layer, even though it has nothing to do with it or anything like it.
That's not that far off.
No.
That's what it made me think of when I was watching it. Just like, I should go back and watch Angelic Layer. And so I decided that's what I'm going to do to troll people to watch this. But other than that, I actually enjoyed it. It was a nice surprise. There's been a few kind of arena battle animes that I haven't been too thrilled with, and with this one coming out, I actually did enjoy it. Although there's a lot of questions, a lot of error, and just some weird things that are going on. I'm not looking too deep into the story or into its technological advances and everything. So
how it can actually be physically practical.
I'm just taking it in strides, going, "Ooh, look, she's evolving, she's becoming stronger," or how else can this bracelet make fun of her and just totally destroy her self-esteem? But yeah, it's not that bad to me. It's enjoyable.
It's actually a Keitai game, right? So everything that's outside the battle scenes is just anime fluff, right? And it's one of those like all battle cutie girl things on DMM.com.
Uh, I did see them listed in the credits, but now that you mention, so wait, you're saying it's like an app-based game or something? What's the cell phone game is what you said, right?
Yeah.
So I didn't really get that vibe from it initially, not that I absolutely had to, but also in the credits by DMM, there was actually Biri, which is like a Chinese YouTube. I just kind of found it weird that they were like accredited, funder of this series. I'm like, well, what's like Chinese YouTube doing here?
Sponsoring it, probably.
Right. No, yeah, I know, but yeah, I just didn't really know what DMM was as much. Like the only reason
DMM is basically famous for Can Collet.
Oh, okay.
Right. And they have lots of these games, and they have lots of them that are basically, not quite soft porn, more harder, right? Tits out for the lads type thing. And this is one of their cuter games. It's like become a real champion and stuff. So it's like click here to start and stuff like that. And there's like 500 other games on this page here, but they're trying to find the next Can Collet.
Understood.
Right, which the arcade game is actually pretty nice. Completely beyond me. Right? I mean, it's just too complicated for me. But you see people playing those.
So, like, what do they do in the arcade game? Like, it's not a joystick button masher, I'm guessing. Like, what do they give you to interact with?
Touchscreens. Lots of arcade games these days are touchscreens.
Okay.
Like they have the Fake Go that's on the arcade version now.
Which one?
Isn't Fake Go an arcade version?
Oh yes.
So is it something like similar to that?
They have one of those. There's also a really lovely like board game thing with beautifully animated like Alice in Wonderland type characters, where you basically have to drive your army and beat the other time off the board, and it's beautifully done. And for me, it's completely unplayable. But they also have the one with the seat that moves and stuff. That's a completely different arcade game altogether. Right. With the Stratos type flying thing with mad cuties going, yay, you can fly.
See, that's the funny thing is when you mentioned like it was an arcade game, I almost was thinking Stratos, but instead of like guns, I thought they gave you a physical joystick to swing the sword with.
Yet. This is
okay.
a Keitai game. Mobile phone or web browser. I'm not actually that sure since I've no intention of playing it. PC game, PC sort of screen game. So if you just put Circlet Princess in and then find the dmm.com URL, it'll be there, and it's all in Japanese. But it's build your team of 5 cuties and choose your style and support characters and kick ass against 100 people.
I gotcha.
Something like that. So it's it doesn't do anything for me, but I mean the banter between the girls is kind of entertaining sometimes. This uniform's really tight. Well, you've got a big fat ass. Stuff like that. You get this chit chat going on, and that's what makes it entertaining for me. The battles, like the talking sword, which is like, of course, like super rare, right? And anything, all that stuff. The ancillary stuff doesn't do anything for me, but the chit chat and banter is what I find entertaining.
It's like much the reason I watched that weird like fishing one from the last season. Like that horrible. Like as an anime, not the greatest, but if you like listening to dialect banter, it was all right.
Oh yeah. It's entertaining. There's not much of the Hyogen in this one, but the banter is good. I mean, for chit chat, I mean, Himote House was good. I mean, that was basically 5 girls around a microphone from start to finish. But that was set in Nakano, so I know all the places that they went to, which was kind of entertaining. And that's all I've got to say about Circular Princess. I mean, I'm watching it, but certainly not for the quality.
Yeah.
Because there isn't any.
It's super high quality, guys. I don't know what you're talking about. Let's go ahead and move on to the next title then. That was Circlet Princess. Go to DMM, download the game.
Randomly click on buttons if you can't read Japanese.
It's play on browser.
Speaking about animes we love, let's talk about an anime about love. Love is a battlefield.
Oh, geez. That was a song.
That who confesses love is the loser. That who receives love is the winner. Something like that.
No, it's love is war, basically. And the best bit of this show, apart from the ending, which is beautifully animated, is the narrator is insane. Right? The narrator is treating it like horse racing.
And the narrator makes the show.
About it. It's like they got him out to Kill the Kill or something.
Yeah, so this is Kaguya-sama wa Kokurasetai
Kaguya-sama.
Tensai Tachi no Renzai Zone no Zunonsen. I'm really bad at I swear, I tell myself this every season. I should just practice reading these titles before the hangout. And I never do.
Which one are we looking at? Is it the Kyoya one?
Kaguya-sama, Love is War, basically.
Yeah, I'm loving this show. Like he said, the narrator makes this show absolutely so entertaining. It's let me see here actually. I want to see if Nick is watching this or not.
Yeah, I am.
Oh yeah, you are. It's hilarious. Just some of the scenes or some of the scenarios that go on. It seems to be partitioned into 3 parts, usually in an episode. So 3 little stories that go on in an episode, where Kaguya and the other guy, what's his name?
What is his name indeed?
So I think it starts with the Nest, right?
Yeah. Continue. I'll tell you when I Google it.
Shirogane or
yeah, I think it's Shirogane.
K. There it is. Okay, K. Well, it's these two that are fighting each other to try to make the other confess to them to show that they have the upper hand in the relationship in a sense. And I don't know where they're getting this information of who needs to be over the other, but it's making it a very entertaining story. And while Kaguya is
Hold on.
from a rich family and a well-off to-do family and very well-known name, it seems that Shirogane is the commoner that just happens to be a genius. And he's the president while she's the vice president. And everyone sees them as the picturesque couple, the perfect couple, and thinks that they're dating, but in reality, there's nothing going on between the two except for the fight over dominance of who gets to confess the love to each other. So each episode has this kind of like who wins, who loses type of thing in the battle, and it's hilarious just how the narrator goes through it all. And I have to say is that it's been very, very fun, and as I've only seen up to the 3rd episode. I think the 4th one is out. The 3rd episode had a very entertaining ending, and as soon as I saw it, I had to share it with Sean because how well animated it was, and it's one of the most talked about things I think out there for this show because of how good it looked, and
the rotoscoped anime.
Yeah, so it was done by rotoscoping, and me, I was impressed. I was like, wow, that just looks really good. At first, I thought it was maybe like they used the program that they kind of use for Miku Miku Dance and
MMD. It
Yeah.
is actually MMD. Okay.
So I thought they were using something like that and then drawing over it to make the show, but I guess not. But the skirt flow and everything was just amazing when you're watching that little ending. And actually, episode 2 had a different ending. than 3.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a nice find, and but it's very enjoyable to me.
See, I'm not like having a big issue with what you kind of like. It's very similar to what you said, but like the takeaway here is the characters aren't necessarily fighting each other, is each of them are very, very prideful. And without necessarily knowing the exact feelings of the other person, they're trying to like become not the first person to act out, ask the other person out, because that's like setting aside your pride. So they're having these like mental battles with each other about psychology, kind of as though they were in a fight, because again, they're not necessarily knowing the exact feelings of the other person. They just kind of decided, we're basically the top 2 of the school. It would be great if this person asked me out. I'm going to try to make that happen without asking them out. So like there's not like this genuine idea that the other person wants to go out with them. They're just it's like a pride manipulation thing. And when you watch it as a piece on manipulating pride, it's a fairly entertaining show. But for the most part, it plays out the way you said.
If you look at it, the manipulating is Chika-chan.
Yeah.
She's the one that's mixing it basically for everyone.
Actually, you know what I find funny about that is that if you go to the Crunchyroll and look at their picture, the title picture they have,
the key visual,
they have Chica on a playing card, which happens to be the Joker, which is like the wild card. So I think that's kind of funny because she's the one that usually throws everything off, and she's just this total wild card thing that happens every time in these battles. And
she's described on the webpage here as Yuru Fua Kyonyu, which is basically floaty woaty, big breasted girl.
Yeah, she's kind of a airhead. Yes.
Wait. Type that word in the chat if you can. I want to look that word up. I've never heard that word before.
Well, I don't know if it'll translate. Google Translate will get it for you, but just a second.
Oh, we can Romanify anything.
But I thought that was hilarious how they put that card to her face for the wild card, and it's a show I have recommended to a few people, and I would recommend it still to more. It's just that enjoyable to me, and the 3rd episode actually was surprised because they always start with this little intro about the war, love is war, and everything, and it kind of started the same, but then it fast forward like, yeah, you guys have heard this enough times.
That's what the narrator is he makes this show.
So, anyone else have anything to add about this?
No. Oh, you're posting there. I can't say particularly at this time.
Okay,
it's just like a battle of which show, and I typically like shows like that because you can kind of, it's really great when you can assess the character on how great they can like cognitively function. And it, even though it's set in high school, there's a lot of intrigue to the mundane stuff that they do. Like, I just like when series can pull that off, and that's what we got here. So
okay, so that was Kaguya's War. Let's move on to the next title then. And this will be for Nick because I don't know anything about this. And
I equally might not as well. I have one such title in here.
Kimono Friends.
Oh, geez.
Oh God. No, pass, Nick.
No pass. No pass. A lot of times when I talk about a show, I just don't necessarily talk about great shows. I just kind of talk about something about it. Like, it could be something negative. It could be something that doesn't happen a lot in anime. And this is kind of one of those shows. As you kind of know, this is something kind of like not like a true reboot, but this show kind of had a sullied past of the creator being kicked off doing second season. So a lot of I don't know what it's like in Japan. Perhaps I could ask Bunny here, who might have a little bit more perspective than I do, because I don't reach out to anyone over there, nor do I get the public consensus of pieces. But it wasn't like we weren't sure on how well the next season was going to be, because the content creator, like the who's writing the script and scenario, and the very core of the series could have essentially changed, and along with the visual quality and the public consensus could actually impact how successful the second season was. So I don't have any insight on that. I could only ask myself if I was enjoying the second season as much as the first, because the first one was kind of this weird piece on, the art wasn't the great, it was kind of terrible CG, but it constructed this interesting story about, personified animals. We see anime do that a lot, set in this not post-apocalyptic world or anything, but obviously like a rundown attraction safari park. And it kind of ticked a lot of intrigue in me, because I am someone who likes to see what happens to abandoned parks that are left standing. A lot of times it just, as it degrades, you just get people who will eventually jump the fence and walk through with the camera, and you get a little insight as to like the standing structures and how they were left and how it's just simply abandoned. And Kemono Friends was such a series where it not only did it have that premise with such a similar concept of an abandoned standing park, it just that was an intriguing part of the story. And while that was preserved in season 2, it was kind of unclear where it would leave off. And this is where I'm kind of conflicted with how I feel about it, because at the end of the first season, we have a character who leaves the island and gets chased after by some of the core cast, and that's where we were left with. If left in the hands of the original creator, they probably would have continued that story. Not wanting to do that here, they kind of almost did a reboot, where it's a new character set in perhaps the same park, who knows? They might just be copying the original art of the park as best as they can, since the publisher technically had full right to a lot of the lore that was made. And it was referenced at one time, like we kind of get a lot of the same, not storytelling, but the premise of, what do the animals know? It was really intriguing in the first season how they kind of had this human character who had human knowledge and could utilize tools, and the animals were kind of wowed by this despite having a people appearance. And that was somewhat maintained in the second season, but it is asked of one of the core characters of the first series, hey, we think this person is a human. You used to hang out with one of those. What do you think? And she's like, oh, I think I did used to hang out with one of them, but I can't really remember much at this time. And a silhouette of the past character, who was the core series character, Kabane-chan, was shown, and we just kind of went along with the new protagonist now. So we don't exactly know what happened at all in that story, and that's somewhat fine if they can successfully make a new story. I just don't know how good of a job they're doing, because the appearance of the characters is a lot softer, and I think they're a lot more still as well. I can't remember in the first season if they tried to be really gesture expressive or not. And while the appearance is somewhat upgraded in this time around, I'm just kind of asking myself, like, is it as intriguing as the first season? Until I watch it till the end, I don't think I'll know. But do you have any idea with how well this one's being received over in Japan?
I didn't like it. It's like a failed children's show, right? It basically, with no Kaban-chan, there's no point to watching it. She was the main character of the entire show, and everything revolved around her. The new one is like, I've got better things to do with my life. Watching paint dry is probably one of them. I actually, on the other hand, Kemuri Kusa, which is basically the old team of Kimono Friends 1, went away and made this new show, That one's kind of weird and trippy and quite interesting. Right? You
Yeah.
have half of a tram and trees and cats and a human, one human who's the the token Kaban-chan, and journeying through this bizarre post-apocalyptic world. Right? Is he food? No, he's not. Type thing. Don't eat me, please. And he's all wow about all the leaves that turn into smoke and stuff like that. And that's quite pleasant to watch.
Yeah, and that's actually something that I'm not sure how well they did in this season 2 of Kimono Friends, because as I'm kind of recalling, a lot of times when they introduced an animal, you got like the token splash of what animal it is. I forget if they included a brief description, but like some of the key differences is in a lot of the eye catches that were employed for the commercial breaks, the A and B side usually, was typically like an audio capture footage that they got from an actual safari somewhere, typically Japanese, I think. But I think I remember there being at least one English iteration where it kind of just tied in to it being a safari and being somewhat informational about animals. Again, being more aimed towards children, but somewhat informational to adults as well, because we usually don't have extensive knowledge of a lot of the rarer animals that aren't in our more local ecosystem if you're not like some kind of an animal biologist. So along the way, you kind of picked up knowledge. And I think right now they've been rather tame with the character cast that they introduced, and with the lack of the safari feel of the commercial eye catches, it's definitely a different story. And again, until I see the end of it, I won't know how I feel, because Kimono Friends 1 kind of had a weird plot story. At first, the adventure was pretty fun, but then it got into this like really weird story at the end. Not the weirdest to come out of anime, but something that I think would have even been too much for perhaps little kids to like just readily digest. But I do want to know where it's going to go, so I can compare it to the first season. What is going to be more successful, the odd charm of the first season, or a rebooted approach to pulling off a hopefully successful second season, since the first one was oddly popular.
Yeah, well, you have to remember they pissed off the fan base.
Yes, absolutely.
So actual fans of Kimono Friends are just going to go, no, Kimurikusa.
And that's what kind of intrigued me, because as we said, it kind of had this child show element to it. Outside of while it could draw a more adult audience like myself, I did like to watch it for the abandoned amusement park aspect. It was rather informational to a lot of people, and it really did. It could be a kid show, like you saw that element as well. You called it a failed kid show. Kids probably won't care about the controversy. So I was kind of wondering, are they banking on it still being a popular family show and therefore popular, or is the negative response going to still be stronger?
It lacks all the elements that you need for a kids show, right? Which is 1, something for the adults, 2, education. Even if it's hidden in there, right? Like the descriptions of the animals that show up in the first series, and the little zoo bits at the end. That's the hidden education bit. And the second season doesn't have that at all.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was noticing.
It's like, we had this cash cow. We've got to make more money. How can we do it? And then of course they pissed off the creators who actually made it work the first time. So they've got to make it up as they go along, and they're not doing a very good job. I mean, if you want children's shows, then you want NHK. Basically, if it's not acceptable for NHK, it's not educational, right? I mean, you look at the shows on there. NHK are really catchy. Right, it's and you're not allowed to advertise, right? But they do have 10 times the audience of anybody else. So basically, getting your show on NHK is the holy grail. Right? And of course, occasionally they do something really right out there, like Seirei no Moribito, right, which is anime with 5.1 surround sound, and that was a TV series, right? But this one, it's like No,
Mhm.
it just doesn't, dot the i's and cross the t's.
Yeah, I mean that's generally the feeling that I was getting from it, but I can't tell if that's still going to make for an okay enough show or like if it will fail because like I was really kind of hoping to by the end of it know the Japanese response because of the weird adoration the first series got amongst certain people. Sure, it wasn't the most popular show, but like I said, it was oddly popular. It caught on with who it caught on with, and that was kind of surprising. And it was just interesting to see where they would kind of take that with what happened. And I don't know if I'm going to get the. I'll have to wait till the last episode comes across, and then if I could banter with you again, I'll kind of ask, like, might you know? Not that I want you to look it up or go out of your way or anything, but like, might you know how well this thing did overseas?
Well, it's like, it's midnight anime. They just got to fill the slots with something, anything, even rubbish.
Mhm.
So I'm not seeing much. It's like, Kadokawa selling it. It's like, oh, original special Blu-ray discs and stuff for Kimono Friends. It's like, you're advertising the Blu-ray discs, and it's like, how many episodes have you made so far? Uh, it just doesn't do it for me.
No, I
It's
get you.
right. I mean, it's not even good Moe blob like Gochusa or anything like that. So it's like, if you look it up on Google, it's like Kimono Friends. One, it says like 93% like this show, right? But when you put in two, you get nothing.
Well,
You
yeah,
just
but it also hasn't like gone over and achieved like the K101 is kind of mature in that aspect of it caught on. Maybe it was oddly popular. Maybe people watched it after it was popular. Like they said, this show is actually good. Go check it out. It's not mature enough to know how well received it would be at this time. But I was just kind of wondering. I would still think that we would get some early consensus amongst the families. Yeah, it's still a good kid show. Amongst the people who hated it, nope, still hate it. Not going to watch it. Give it the time of day.
midnight anime is not kids shows.
And yeah, that's it. That was the thing because like it totally felt like one, but I heard it came out at a weird time, even in the first series. Like even though it was kind of a weird
It's
kid
not
show.
designed for kids, but it has an appeal to it, and it's completely safe for kids.
Yeah.
Right? But fundamentally, midnight anime is not for children. Right? It's filling in the time slots when otherwise they'd have to have talk shows or something boring like that, or
I
maybe
get
even
you.
turn the transmitters off, which would save a lot of electricity and animators. No, I'm not seeing much. I mean,
No, I
it's
got
like,
you. It's good. I think we have said enough about this one so far, though.
well, here's one. What did we think of this? Yeah.
So what else did we have coming up?
No, that's me.
I know. I wonder what happened to Tank.
It's falling
He's
asleep.
you're audio muted, Tank, if you're trying to talk. Maybe you're away. Oh no, he did say BRB. So let's fill in some time here.
I'm back. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
cool.
Okay, sorry.
You're
You
good.
say talking about the good stuff secretly while you weren't here.
Oh no.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, let's talk about this next title, which is Anime of the Year. Mini Toji.
Why are you talking about this?
No, I'm just kidding.
It's one of those stupid deformed ones.
No, I know, but I don't think he's being serious. I think unless he's actually watching it, he's just joking and there's a different title.
I was just joking.
Yeah, I figure.
This show here called Kemuri Kusa.
That is Kimono Friends too.
Kind of.
So, Kemuri Kusa is this on Amazon Prime, I believe. Comes out on Wednesdays. Something I'm going to be watching weekly because it's actually very entertaining to me, at least. And I saw some of the reviews. People were like, poor writing, terrible effects. I don't know. To me, it has enough mystery that I'm like, I'm going to keep on watching. I want to know what happens. I want to see what's going on. And I guess it actually had an OVA that was released back in 2012 that I might want to check out. After the series, I don't know if it would be spoiling too much, or maybe it's like the story of all these characters that they're talking about, which are referenced in this show. But one thing I do enjoy is those what are those characters called? The Ritsus.
Hmm.
The
Little
like,
maid
like
thing.
there's like four of them or something like that, and they're all of them talking and just the banter with all those girls and the guy is just hilarious to me.
And of course the one with cat ears that goes meow all the time.
Yeah, she, I find her lips somewhat weird. I think, or maybe it's
That's a sort of that's a cat style mouth.
I don't know. There's just something about it that made me kind of like
The little arch up in the middle. That's a sort of cat style mouth.
not in the middle, like on the bottom lip. I don't know what it is.
Well, she's a cat.
But other than that,
That's Ritsu.
yeah, and it's like whenever she's controlling the tree. What was the tree's name again?
I have no idea.
I forget as myself as well.
But whenever she's with the tree, it seems like when they're moving the train, she's like holding her breath, like she's really concentrated on pushing. But other than that, yeah, I don't know. I'm really enjoying this really weird world that's been destroyed. They're searching for water to survive, just to go on to the next day, and they end up finding this creature or mushi, as they call it, the bug, that they have no idea what it is, and they can't exterminate it like the red bugs. So it's kind of this strange element that's added into their group, and they're keeping it around for now. And I don't know what's going on with him either. He has no memories, but he's just sticking with them and being himself. And I don't know what's with him either, but supposedly with everything that's new and happening around him, he has no time to be afraid. So everything that's going on, he's just so fascinated with, and due to his nature, supposedly he's always trying to help out as well. And it's just a really fun show to me.
Hmm.
But I will admit it's kind of the CG is somewhat poorly done in some areas, especially when they do close-ups. Like you can see like lines going through other lines and stuff.
Yeah, it's this studio I've never heard of called Yo-Yo Rozu.
But other than
this one. That's them chat.
Yeah, the makers of Kimono One.
but to me, it's not
It's
necessarily.
probably all MMD then.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, but I wasn't gonna I wonder what their process is, but I don't want to extrapolate on something that I have no way of looking up.
Yeah, but to me, for the show, it's not really the animation that I'm watching it for. Obviously, it's the world and what's going on around, and
And that's the intrigue they got in Kimono One. Kind of.
So that's why I'm enjoying this show and keep on watching it. I'm waiting for him to turn around. He's the big bad guy and he kills all of them.
Optimist.
But I think a large part of why it looks crude is the team who makes it is relatively small. That's largely why Kimono Friends was such a surprise success, is because while everybody kind of agrees that it looks a little like crud, it still is decent. They brought something to the table that endeared something to people. And while they definitely have a whole new story that they're going on now, just to give you the scope of this series, it says, was created by the director and his 3-person animation group. So at best, there maybe is 4 people working on just the aesthetics of the show, not the voice actors and all the other stuff. But that's a pretty small team for an episodic 12 probably episode animation. Because they rely so much on the CG that they use, that's where you can kind of see them pulling it off. It's not like a 2D hand-drawn process, but the scope of the budget that they can work with is what makes it intriguing, and like the amount of talent that it requires. Well, not the talent that it requires, but the amount of staff that you would have to produce something like that, for given budget, time, and all that other stuff.
They don't have the tree's name and characters or voice actors on my anime list, but
They have the voice actors listed on the Kimura page.
yeah, but they don't have the tree on my anime list, which is what I'm looking at. But I think if I remember correctly now, it's Midori, right? Green?
Probably green.
The whole thing about this show is colors of things.
Yeah.
Blue things don't harm you. Red things do harm you. Green things are green things. I don't know. But it's very much, it's like, some sort of, I don't know, trippy animation he made in 2010. And this is the TV series. So I wouldn't be surprised if Yo Rose was actually his company, Tatsuki's company.
It is.
If you look at their list of works, then it's short adverts. And, I mean, Crane Game Girls. I mean,
oh, geez.
That shoujo something, I don't know, Crane Gale, because of course we can't spell over here, and L is the same as R, and it's a dead site. Typical. Their previous website is, the domain has been parked because they completely forgot to pay for it. Nazutokine, yeah, I'm not seeing anything that really cranks my tractor, except of course Kimono Friends. Now you look at the about of the company, it's in Higashi Azabu, which is it's a third floor some building, and it's been around for 5 years.
I did actually watch a little bit of the Crane Game Girls, and I don't think that one was overly CG. That was, I think, simplistic, more 2D, but
yeah, I'm just like enjoying the playing follow the links. Here's the link there.
Very good. So this series is kind of intriguing in the world that they painted in. Either it attracts your attention or it doesn't. But I would say, much in the fashion of Kemono 1, I do think it's surprising by how many people are picking it up, kind of a thing. But
I will say this, though. I think the opening and the ending are somewhat spoilers. Maybe not the ending so much, but the opening, because you see characters that we have no idea who they are.
That's absolutely bog standard for Japanese animation. Let's give away everything in the opening.
But the thing I did like about the ending was, rather than showing the characters, it shows silhouettes of all the characters. And as the song continues on, some of them disappear, and I think those are the characters that are now missing. So I think it's showing like the order of how they're missing it. By the end of the song, it just shows the cast that are there. Because at the end, the green guy appears too. So
that's the sort of how we got here thing.
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of entertaining. Because it doesn't give you too much information, but it shows something. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, interesting. Well, let's go to another show now then. Kamirikusa. I would recommend it, but let's see. How about this show? This show, I have mixed feelings because I think it's entertaining because of in some points, but in others, I'm like, this is trash.
What the hell is that?
It's Pastel Memories, and I will take over. I'm not going to let Tank get to say his piece on it. I will tell you my perspective.
I'm going to say it at the end.
So when you watched it, you're introduced to a cast who are working in a cafe who have scraps of manga around. And the premise is quickly established that anime and otakuism, as we know it, has really fallen from grace. And anime and manga barely exist anymore. No one's actively really creating series. And it's very hard to find the remnants. Like if you wanted a complete volume of something that you're fond of, that you remembered, it's kind of hard to do so. There's like literally 5 shops left in Akihabara as a whole that even sell the stuff. And at first, that was kind of a weird topic for me to kind of stomach because I'm like, yeah, right. That's probably never going to be what happens to anime. I mean, I can't talk 200 years in the future, but like it was so weird that you're an anime that exists to say that anime is failing. Like, what are you trying to do here? And I watch these characters as they go about through the city because in episode one of their premises was a character reached out to them through a journal on the counter that one person left for people to banter back and forth when they incidentally weren't in the shop. She's all like, I really like this manga that I'm really looking for. Can you guys help me? And of course, the shop is really disorganized. They don't have room to keep everything out on their floor because it's mostly the fact that they're a cafe that they get by. So they go through their storage and it's not organized well at all. And they try to find volumes for this person to buy, as a whole. And they're only able to find like 2 volumes out of a 7-volume manga block. So they have to go to the other remaining 5 or 4 shops to try to pad in the thing for this customer. And all in all, by the end of the episode, I was ready to give this thing up. Like, I really don't want to watch a show about how anime is not popular. Like, it's not that I don't agree with the message. It's just it's not entertaining. And at the very tail end of the episode, we're met with what the show's really going to be about. This gear animation starts up, and people kind of warp in. And what you get is there is more cast to the cafe, and the world is kind of afflicted, the fictional world is afflicted with a virus. And as the virus infects works of art, whether they be anime or manga, if the virus wins and kills the world, the book and or series, as we know in the real world, disappears from people's memories and it's just gone. And then it clicked, then it made sense. I'm like, that's how you're explaining anime fell from grace. Aha! I kind of like this concept now. Because the staff of the cafe jump into the world of the anime that they're currently watching actively disappear to save it from actually disappearing from people's memories. And I don't know if it's going to be a successful show. I've honestly only seen 2 episodes at this time, the conclusion to jumping into the world to save it. So I don't know where it's going from there. I'll have a more established idea when I watch it all, because it was the only thing that it was interesting to me is how it planted this idea that I really don't agree with the premise. The show outside of this premise isn't entertaining, to the hook hitting at the tail end and being okay, now I'm somewhat sold into the show. Sure, they can do a bunch of things wrong from here on out. Maybe I won't like it by the end. But to give a little bit more premise into the second episode as well, when they jumped into this world, the show was based around a cafe where it had a rabbit mascot character, and it was kind of like the Order is a Rabbit is what it looked like it was kind of parodying somewhat. And the virus that was afflicting the world was turning the rabbit mascot into an eel, and every time it came into contact with a person, it would eelify them. And it was kind of weird to see these like anthropomorphized people with like eel features. But I'm like, okay, I see what you're doing. I don't know what other worlds are gonna like. I don't know what they're gonna pad in for episodes, 3 to 12. But I at least enjoyed the premise enough to not give up on it when I was totally ready to pull the plug on episode 1.
This is, of course, a Keitai game. It's, according to the website, the genre is Otaku Girls RPG.
Mm-hmm.
Which basically means it's everybody's Zeppelin core, right? And when you look at the list of copyrights, it's got Furyu, so it's basically pachinko, right? And we've got a few other odds. There's animation by Mages, Tora no Ana is a sponsor, Furyu's in there, and yeah, it's cute. It's a Keitai game though. It's for the Attention Deficit Society.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it does nothing for me. I mean, I watched the first episode or 2, and it's like, yeah, I can remember about the fact that they're magical superheroes. They have to go and rescue comics from evil viruses and stuff like that. But it doesn't do it for me because it's a Keitai game.
I got you.
Originally, perhaps afterwards. I don't know which came first, but I'm suspecting the Keitai game came first.
Yeah, I'm looking online about this, and then it says I just found the wiki created for the mobile game series Pastel Memories. So It looks like it's a mobile game.
Oh yeah.
Here. But my whole
You've got
thing.
more cuties in the mobile game. You've got Nekomimi maids. You've got hat-wearing twin tails with steampunk goggles. I
The
mean,
artwork of it did seem oddly steampunk when it came to like the main characters.
Yeah, it is. I mean, she's got a gear-shaped sword, gun sword, whatever the hell that thing is. It's got a valve halfway down it, right, and bolts holding it together. So it's basically a two-handed sword, and she's holding it one-handed. She's got no chance. She's dead before the first guy starts, waking up. And you got steampunk guns here with dials on and stuff. So, and gears and everything. And frilly dresses, of course, because you must have frilly dresses when working with heavy machinery, which is a great idea.
Makes total sense. Makes total sense.
And the steampunk goggles with little gears on and stuff like that, and little goggle hairband, little gear wheel hairbands and stuff. So, I mean, it is kind of cute, but
Well, they wanted to give cosplayers some steampunk characters for the next convention.
I think, yeah.
But honestly, my first time when I was watching this, I was like, "What? Hanekawa? Oh wait, no, that's
I didn't think I saw the character.
But it was funny seeing the parody. And I'm like, oh, I know the show. I didn't watch it, but I know what they're referencing. But it looks so bad. I get it's a parody, but it looks so weird to see how they made it so that it's similar, but it's not. And the next title that they ended up rescuing me, just made me cringe because the next one was Rosen Maiden, but they call it Rosie Maiden instead of Rosen. It's Rosie.
Yeah, like I will admit, in episode 2, because I haven't seen 3 yet, which is no big deal. Like the last boss was really disappointing. Like it was a comedic boss fight, at least like that was the intention, but it came across in such a way where it just seemed it's not likely to entice anyone to watching the show. It was just too fun, like too lighthearted of a you're trying to kill this world, let's take you down, and like the boss itself was not the best drawn thing ever, not that it had to be, and the person who was piloting it or stood on its shoulder wasn't the most competent seeming, but hey, Keitai game.
The only thing I have to say that I really enjoyed about this whole thing was the ending credits. So if you haven't seen the ending, you should watch it. It's awesome.
Well, there you go. Anime no Sekai, Steam Collector Minx, Idol Legend, Lovely Mami, End of Quest. So they're all it's also like visiting different worlds and stuff. And of course you have like gratuitous costumes you can put them in, like idol costumes, Maho Shoujo costumes, maid costumes, and so on. If you have a look at this page here, I should paste that on. Have a look at that, and you can see what this game is about. Oh, it's got a pirate. Now that gets my approval immediately. No, because Miniskirt Pirates was one of my favorite shows.
Ooh.
Oh, come on. It's science fiction. Space opera.
I like the witch costume on her. Okay, let's move on to hey, Bunny, is there any title you want to talk about? Maybe something that you really enjoyed this season?
Me?
Yeah.
My current favorite is Kotobuki. Because the flying stuff is just complete and utter porn. I mean, you have every sound effect that you need is in the flying scenes.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that was actually
the girls and stuff. Is like, who cares? More planes.
Yeah. What is it? Koya no Kotobuki Hotokai?
Yes, Kotobuki.
That one I thought was very, very. I don't know if I'll watch it, but the parts I did watch were very entertaining because even as it has a lot of like this first person point of view from the plane. Um, you could actually hear the stress of the metal and everything when it does turns.
That's just like it's clearly made by raging, propeller plane otaku, right? You see the flaps when she's first starting up the plane. You see the little flaps on the side of the cowl to let the air through to cool the engine and starting stuff like that. It's they've just gone so completely over the top on the planes. It's like, who cares about all the girls? It's just get more planes out there.
See, this is where I'm going to make a comment that Bunny will instantly potentially hate me for the next hour. Is I prefer girly Air Force.
Girly Air Force? Girly Air Force would be okay if the jam hadn't been nerfed.
It's like all the reasons you're going over for liking this show is totally not what the other one does, though.
Yeah, I can completely understand that. It's like polar opposites.
I know.
It's like, it's one of the reasons I liked Miniskirt Pirates is it was actually written by a proper science fiction author, and so all the science was good science.
Mm-hmm.
Right? There was no magic involved. I mean, there were a few, obviously, hyperspace and crap like that, but I mean, there was no magical portals and anything like that, or stuff like that. And Kotobuki I like because of the flying.
I got you.
I mean, the moment I first saw a plane, it's like, wow, look at the state of that plane, right? And then you see him her cranking it to start it up, and the other one, the other girl is checking the magnetos and stuff like that. So it's like, this is hardcore, flying animation, and it does not disappoint in that. I mean, the mayor of the town is a complete wuss and stuff, but who cares about that? It's more flying. All the dogfights are just so well done. I mean, okay, nobody dies or anything like that because they're using rubber bullets, but it's everything about the flight. The airship is done quite well as well. I mean, it does look like a sort of Zeppelin, but it has a runway in the middle of it. And the bridge crew has got A, B, and C. The three girls with the three different hairstyles that look the same. They really are called A, B, and C. Right. But I mean, that show is that's my show for the year.
Don't all airships have runways? Come on.
Not when you consider the mass involved and stuff like that, but it's like the planes versus the characters. It's like two completely different animation styles involved there. I mean, sometimes the characters are 2D hand-drawn ones, and the heroines are all 3D CG type things. It's about as jarring as Revisions is. Animation is jarring, right? But the Revisions has got a pink head girl, so it's okay by me.
So, I didn't check out Girly Air Force. So, what's Girly Air Force?
Don't worry about it. It's kind of like basically think about what made what was it, the Blue Steel, the Arpeggio Blue Steel show, but done in airplanes and with a much worse story. And you got Girly Air Force.
That's fairly fair. You didn't put it down hard enough there, though.
I know. I know. But I want to try to be quick because there's some titles that I want to get through, and I don't know how much time we have left, so I didn't want to get too.
And that's it for today. Thank you all for watching. No,
Hey.
What's the next title you wanted to talk about?
One that I am not watching, but I wanted to talk about its premise and what makes it unique, and that would be the. Can you pull up the virtual show?
Oh, Virtual Changamiteru.
Yes.
No, I cannot.
You horrible person.
I don't have that title card. I didn't think anyone was going to talk about it.
I mentioned it earlier. I said I'm definitely going to talk about it. You horrible person.
Yeah, but I was like, I thought you were kidding.
No, I was serious.
You're like, here's a joke. I'm going to talk about this.
No, that wasn't a joke. There was a different one that was a joke. But anyway, so without the title card, I'm still going to proceed because there's no way I'm not going to bring it up.
Virtual Fighter? Is that what it's called?
No,
No,
it's
Shanga Miteru or something.
yeah. Like, let me know when you want me to proceed, because this one's really intriguing. Although I checked out the first episode and I'm not sold into it, I can tell you also why, and that's what I think is important. But this is kind of like a first when it comes to anime, in my opinion, because I don't think I've ever heard anything done like this before.
It's
So,
live.
yeah, absolutely. So, if you're familiar with,
Retro-
let's just talk about somebody who's really somewhat mainstream in the U.S. A lot of, and not everyone in the U.S., but a lot of people in the U.S. will know who the
Hatsune
character Kizuna Ai is, correct? Like I'm sure we all here know Kizuna Ai. I'm sure it's a very household name for us. Kizuna Ai is essentially a YouTube-esque entity who, someone made the character, does basically the live 2D like someone in our chat right now, kind of, who plays games and stuff and just provides interesting commentary. But when these characters catch on, they're just kind of known as like vloggers, or there's a couple different names. VTubers is kind of another one. And essentially this anime was somehow made. Now I don't know the process in which how they got cast or whatever, but I guess they were able to go on and pick up a bunch of these somewhat popular to maybe even not popular virtual tubers and arranged a show where they can all show up as cast. And as Bunny mentioned, it's done live. Like, I don't know if they have the general script to try to make the content somewhat themed, but you're essentially gathering entities of like 30 people who are, there's no plot, there's no story. There is a character roster only because that's how many people they got, and you can like look up a cast of like 30 people that they got to sign on, or however they pulled this off. What you're literally watching is a live show of people who are, using face rig like software to be the character. And that is, virtual sanwa miteru. And like they kind of introduced that into the intro. I forget if it's the intro played in every episode or if once they establish it, they kind of stop saying. But you have a virtual tuber or something who kind of has that horse head meme kind of a body, and he's kind of explaining what's about to happen. It's like, these people are virtual and we're just going to go and see what they're doing. Because again, there's like no centralized plot that I personally know of. Kizuna Ai is not in this list, but that's not a bad thing. It's just the only one that I knew about as a really popular one. Don't know if they tried to obtain Kizuna Ai or not. Not a clue. But this is it's for a very weird anime, and the first episode came nowhere near hooking me, and I didn't really. I think the problem is like the language barrier here, because I don't think a lot of us on the U.S. side know a lot of these VTubers, where if you were in Japan and you're like a fan of, say, 5 of them, that might entice you to watch the show. Not so much for the US people, I'm guessing. Absolute guess. Maybe you'll like the concept of a live show that's not normal anime and watch it for that reason. Not a clue. First episode didn't hook me, and I didn't stay on board. But I wanted to bring it up.
Well, if you look at the web page, I mean, the cast has got a whole pile of these characters, and like Shirt has like got this got cutesy Nekomimi and stuff, but she's got this most of annoying, floaty voice. Like, I'm not actually here; I'm actually stoned on NyQuil. And some of the others, like Hime and Hana, I mean, they're like sort of like a quote virtual idol unquote group. They do lots of singing videos and stuff like that. And then generally they play video games on YouTube and laugh at it. And that's about the level of quality to expect. But I mean, I mean, God, virtual grandmother Kobayashi Sachiko. I mean, what the hell? I have no idea what that is. But I mean, it's so bizarre that I might want to actually go and look at that later.
Yeah, I think if like they just simply had some of the more iconic, like say if they had Kizuna Ai, perhaps in every episode, it would probably adopt a lot more people. Well, more viewers, not people.
Look who does the music.
Yeah.
It's Mr. Squarewaves does the music. Yasutaka Tanaka. Nakata Yasutaka. Basically, Perfume, Kari Pemu Pemu, Kizuna Ai's latest song, all that music, that's him. So he's
Gotcha.
doing this show,
Mm-hmm.
made by Dwango. So that's why it's live and stuff. Because what else have we got here? Director. It's actually got a director. I'm not quite sure what he's doing.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know exactly how they aim to do each episode. Perhaps there is a generalized, script that they could have not script, but like here's like a theme that we're going to provide for you just so we don't have a lot of dead space, like just to get some conversation. Like I don't know how they produced it, not a clue. I would be interested in knowing the process, but like this is one of the most potentially like user content generated animes that might ever exist. I mean, sure, someone else can later go and do a project much like this again, perhaps better, perhaps worse, but the concept of it was so out there to me that I'm like, even though I'm not going to be a watcher of it because I'm lost on most of these people and I don't really necessarily care what they're bantering about, I can see why it would be popular for people who might be fans of those characters, or like the fact that this thing made it to, I'm guessing TV. I'm assuming it's televised somehow. Maybe it's just released completely on web.
It's Tokyo MX.
Kind of mind blowing to me. Like, not only is this not just say like a release on YouTube, which I would almost expect it to be, it's so strange for it to not be considered an anime, but as the concept of what we would call anime. Here's this thing that doesn't like cleanly fit into that genre, I would say. Now, I'm not going to say it doesn't count, throw it out. It's just like, wow.
It's actually on Tokyo MX, which is reasonably experimental with their midnight content. And if we look at internet streaming, we see it's on Nico Nico because, of course, Dwango is the owner of this show. Periscope, God knows what it is. D Anime Store, so that's for all those Docomo phone users. Amazon Prime, Bandai Channel, JCOM On Demand. I've got JCOM at home, but I never use the on-demand stuff. But I think, for me, I mean, the only thing is it's got Mr. Squarewaves doing the music. Right? So, I mean, like the opening is Kizunai. So she is actually in that show.
Oh, okay.
Opening song is her.
So, if anything, it kind of reminds me of some things Nick showed me about how this there is a YouTuber that shows and hosts videos from his VR chats.
Oh, there's plenty of those.
So it seems like it's just a VR chat.
I was kind of wondering if VR chat would ever make its way into an anime somehow, and this is like the closest that I think will come. But like what gives VR chat away usually is like the posture at which many people sit. Like they almost look like they're ready to just like start throwing punches because like you're usually sitting and your arms are kind of like ready to interact with stuff so you could reach out. So you kind of have this like natural, like most people walking around will typically assume this stance, and that's not quite what's going on here. But
yes, the arms are all over the place.
Yeah, and like the game has problems with constantly knowing where the tracking is. So like sometimes it resets the arm, but then it snaps back into where it should be. Yeah, like but you can like smooth that out in post. But I think like VR chat as a whole, unless you like adopted, 30 instances of the wireless control and had everybody using it standing, you would probably see some people in the typical posture that you would see most people using VR chat. I'm largely not into like watching that content anymore. There's one guy who made it popular and I watched him for a while, but then I've since kind of fallen off that wagon. But it was interesting at the time because VR chat almost takes on this like constant anime con aesthetic. I mean, you got lots of stuff showing up in there, but it's almost like the year-round anime con at times. It has since went on to establish lots of games and lots of stuff to do in the virtual space. But it pretty much still has that ceiling of you need a decent computer and a VR set, and a lot of people just don't have that. So like your interactions are going to be limited to watching like popular content creators if you're not in there doing it yourself. You absolutely don't need the virtual reality experience. They do have ways for you to like 2D log in, mouse and keyboard your way through it. You just lose that interactivity element because it's very hard to interact with stuff when you don't have hands in the game.
Yeah, well, Live 2D doesn't have hands if you don't have like, real sense. But real sense support is absolute garbage. I mean, face trick. I mean, Live 2D is the animation, it's the face and stuff. And if she had hands and the real sense camera worked, which it doesn't because FaceRig only support cameras that don't exist anymore, then I could wave my hands at you. But as it is, you can just do this and this, and I can squint at you and wink and close my eyes and stuff like that. And that's about it.
I think I just saw you wave.
No, he means the eyebrow. The eyebrow waves at us occasionally.
Yeah, it's tracking eyebrows. Right. It basically tracks your eyes, nose, mouth, and eyebrows. Right. And if I turn my head, you can see it turns like that and up and down, stuff like that.
It makes me think of what's that called? A Snapchat?
This is a FaceRig.
Like those filters is usually what they call them, but it also reminds me Camtasia had like implementations of live 2D stuff like that, I believe. FaceRig's definitely the most popular, like that's all what it's about. But there are other apps that had not like live 2D, but face controlled. Like you almost have that in what is it, like Apple or Samsung that does the Animojis or whatever, where like you have a user created kind of thing, and it uses the same concept of gathering facial animation to drive a balloony 3D, like almost like literally an emoji-esque entity that you can just send to your friends and stuff. And I mean the technology is a little all over the place, and many things are able to somewhat implement it, but yeah.
Well, Camtasia doesn't have any cute pictures or anything on it. It says it. I mean, I must be looking at the wrong thing here. It's like TechSmith Camtasia. That sound like it?
No, it was like a webcam software thing.
Yeah, well, this is like something like that. No, I shall look for it later.
Mm.
So you've run out of shows then? I've got no shows left to watch because, quite honestly, this season is rubbish and there is nothing worth watching on TV.
There's there's tons of stuff you should be watching.
Yeah, but there's only so many hours, so you have to basically, go, well, do I want to watch this rubbish or do I want to watch paint dry?
There's one title we haven't talked about, which is just wonderful. Which here, let me transition this to. And we finally got our Data Live season 3.
I actually haven't. Like I've started not 2 series that are like continuing season 3s, or one's a 2, one's a 3. I haven't actually started on.
I love Data Live.
I like it. I was trying to get through some of the new stuff before I got to the continuing ons.
Yeah, so seeing that there's a season 3 made me very happy. I don't even know if they were planning on it or anything like that. It just showed up one day and I was like, oh, watch. To say if it's good or not, I don't care. It's Data Live. I'm gonna watch it regardless if it's good or not, because I just loved season 1. I don't know how to explain it. Just that scene, and they even brought it actually back in season 3 here. I think it was during the opening or maybe a ending. I can't remember, but they do show Toka with her big
If you say bread pillow,
bread
I swear.
pillow, yeah.
You.
Oh my god.
You and your bread pillow.
When I saw her with that, I was like, oh yes. I love
Bread
it.
Yeah, she has a little pond pillow with a bite mark in it.
Or bread plushie, if you want to call it that.
Oh, like a big soft piece of toast type thing.
Yeah, but it's more like a throw pillow in nature.
But like in season 1, episode 3 is what sold me to the show, because she was introduced to bread and she loved bread. It was so tasty to her, and she just absolutely just fell in love. And then she sees a crane game which has it inside, for some reason, these plushies that look like bread, and she wanted to get one. So she plays the game and she's trying to get it, and it just barely falls short. It doesn't fall down, and she's doing this dramatic scene like, why is the world forsaking me, all this stuff. And then finally it falls in and she's like so happy. And then the next scene you see, the pillow's got all these bite marks because she thought it was real bread and she was like trying to eat it. Oh, that was so cute. I love the show. because of that.
So I get that's why you like the show, but my question to you, as someone who hasn't initiated season 3 yet, is the early premise of Date Alive was there are spirits showing up, or what like human-like entities that we call spirits that possess lots of power. And instead of letting them be destructive, we're going to try to win them over to the side of humanity through romance. So we have this invisible ship in the sky with tons of staff, and our protagonist has an earpiece. And he's going through a dating sim like experience where he has to take them out on dates. And as scenarios rise up, the situation, the staff in the floating plane ask themselves what they would do in a situation, like they're given 4 options to pick from or something. They all submit what they would do, and then it gets sent to the main protagonist. I see that somewhat difficult and consistent. Like I get that's the premise of the show, but usually with the returning cast, you no longer should be having to do that. Like I just see it breaking away from that. The only reason we should want to implement that in the future is with the introduction of new spirits. Like, how do you think season 3 is handling this content so far? Like with that scenario I just kind of thrown out there, like either A, they're not doing it as much anymore, or like are they still doing the dating thing with the old spirits, or have they just let the guy handle this at this point?
I have no idea. It's like it might change a perfectly good premise.
So
No,
right,
I just see it. Oh, never mind.
I don't know. I think I've only seen the first 3 episodes, which the conflict hasn't ended yet. So it's a little different this time because, like you said, it was him dating them, him getting the spirits' love meter to the max, so that he can then kiss them and seal their powers. That was basically the premise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he ends up meeting this new spirit, and he's going through the whole thing of introducing himself, trying to get into her good grace, but then something happened by mistake, and now she's like, "You saw it, didn't you?" And he's like, "What?" And she gets so upset at him that decides to play this game where, I guess because she can the um, mimic other people. She puts this game um, on him to try to find who she's impersonating, and whenever he can't guess it, she'll make one of the people dear to him disappear or something like that. There's like 12 people she gives him pictures of that you have to guess who's who.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's all the season's going on. Like he's dating each person again to try to see if there's any changes in them to see who's the fake.
Okay.
And so that's what's happening through 1 through 3. But again, something happens at the end of episode 3, which doesn't resolve this issue. So I have to watch episode 4 to see what happens. But it seems like the first spirit is still in its capture arc right now, up to that point. But they're still playing the old tropes. There's that one girl that's always like, "That's gross," as her main line every single time. The friend is this weird guy that's dating his 2D girlfriend on his phone. Toka is still her clumsy, but they seem to make Toka almost seem a little more jealous this season. She has this higher jealousy factor of what's going on. OreAni, I think was her name, or Ore something, still going after him, but she doesn't seem as aggressive as she used to. I don't know if that's right, but I always thought she was a little more aggressive when trying to capture what's his name, Shion, or she?
It's been a while for me, and I haven't started with the season yet. I have it, I just haven't started.
It's a Shido Itsuka.
Oh yeah, Shido. I thought it was for some reason I wanted to say Shion, but I'm like, that's not right. Shido. Yeah.
Be a little much of a girl's name for the most part, in my opinion.
Shido. Yeah. So Shido. So, that's the only difference I really saw amongst all the characters. So the dates that are going on are kind of somewhat fun because it reintroduces all the characters to you because it's been a while since the last season. So it's a nice way to figure out who is each character and how they got captured. But I think the newest enemy is called Natsumi or something like that, and she's portrayed as this like witch, and it's we'll see what's going on because I think they're also continuing the story from last season where the enemy's trying to capture the princess and use her power or something like that. So there is some of that side stuff going on that they do show a little bit of more information about the plots of what they're going to do with that. But the main focus still is Shido trying to.
The witch is Natsumi. It's the one with the amazing hat with the wings and basically looks like she belongs in Halloween and shouldn't be let out of there.
Yeah.
170 centimeters tall. Her three sizes are 94, 62, 90. Because you have to have that in your basic anime like this. So basically, that's Bonkyu Bonk, right? So,
and I still think like the most known character of the show is going to forever be Kurumi. That character caught on with the masses and probably won't sway.
But she's the only character that hasn't actually shown up in this.
Kurumi is because she's a complete nut job. Right. I mean, codename Nightmare. Kurumi Tokisaki. Well, I've got different colored eyes. I'm dressed like a pumpkin and with platform, but she would not look out of place in Harajuku. In fact, probably wouldn't get a second glance in Harajuku.
The Chunibyo is strong there.
She always had this strange smile that.
Well, yeah, she's a complete nutcase.
I just loved it. Characters that have that smile are just interesting to me.
That's the I'm going to something really bad soon smile.
She's totally a yandere.
So, is that it for this talk? Should we?
Oh, you have to end on Bang Dream. Go on, Nick Cosmo will come around and club you to death.
I will not, but I did want to do like basically a little shout out for it.
Shout out for what?
The
Bang Dream 2, because cute girls making a band. It's basically a trope of anime here.
Kind of, but like, yeah, I was going to start my piece on it if you wanted to pull up a graphic or okay, you did already, cool. And then it went away.
Are you talking about the game? The phone
yeah, game? Well, we actually did have the rhythm game come out here in the US. I'd still say Love Live was much more popular, and this game probably won't dethrone it. But so Bang Dream, I'm a little bit familiar with because one of the games that I play occasionally when there's like stuff that I really like is a physical based card game done by Bushido Road, who I do think like is the sole not like the sole creator, but somewhat a producer of this series. So season 1 was, a 2D animated story that I was introduced to the characters. I liked it enough to watch. Sometimes I occasionally watch the Idol-esque movie shows, but this one wasn't really Idol because it was girls band and it stayed girls band. And they always performed at this live house. And there was not like a super convoluted plot there, but there's something going on with them becoming popular and only girls bands playing at this venue. But we were only really ever introduced into this protagonist band. And I don't know if that's going to be the case with season 2 because Bushido Road went on to, or maybe not Bushido Road, but whoever directed or produced this made lots of bands that I guess you would encounter in the app game. And I don't know if you play for any one of the bands or how you got the characters or just any time you did a song you were that band. Not a clue, and I don't really care because I'm not going to play it. But one of the interesting things here is the second season moved into pure CG character. Like they aren't 2D animated anymore. A lot of times you only get character CG when they're actually playing instruments because it's, time saving to do. But when I saw the pure CG model, it actually kind of broke the show for me. And normally this doesn't happen. Normally I can look past this, but I guess I was so used to the 2D character designs that I just couldn't see the characters anymore as, the season 1 that I started with. So I kind of couldn't really care for the story anymore, and I just kind of gave it up. But
it looks, I mean, looks like they're trying to compete with IMAS here.
yeah.
Or maybe the Sanrio show.
Well, the Sanrio show, I think, if you're talking about Show by Rock, it still used like 2D animation with like chibi CG. Like it was weird what they did there, but season 1 kind of worked. I didn't care as much for season 2, but yeah, like I was completely lost in the character design, and I didn't care about what was going on anymore. And I think largely you're supposed to be somewhat invested in the various bands, because what I saw circulating in the card side of the industry was them promoting other bands alongside the the main protagonist band, the Popping Party or whatever it was called. But again, I don't know how the game plays, and I was kind of interested in what that would spell for the card game, because I would laugh my butt off if I'd never played this iteration in the cards. And while that doesn't matter, that shouldn't affect the anime. I would laugh if they used a lot of the 2D art for the first season, and like whenever second seasons come out, you get new sets based on that, and you'd have like these pure CG looking characters alongside perhaps like season 1 characters if you made such a deck. And I'm just kind of like going, wow, like to me, wow, this looks like a mess. I'm sure most people won't care about this, but yeah, I'm totally dropping it, and I don't know what it's going to be about, because character design, pure and simple.
Well, Bushi Road, he says, looking quickly at their webpage, is a combination of trading card games. So it's like
and mobile games,
Magic the Gathering, and mobile games. We've got Gratuitous Cuties with glasses, Sangokshi, because you can never get enough Sangokshi. Singing Girls, you've got Review Starlight, you've got a couple of boy things for the kids, Singing Cuties, Handsome Guy thing, Tennis no Oji-sama, that's for the Fujoshi, and Crayon Shinchan, which Crayon Shinchan, yes, I mean, it's a terrible habit, and I have to try and kick it, because I actually like Crayon Shinchan.
It was enjoyable for what it is. I don't know if it's like well lived in the States anymore, but
he's been in like junior school or nursery school or whatever it is now for like nearly 20 years. Right? I mean, he's never going to get out of that hell. But the movies, if you watch the movies, they are fabulously entertaining. Right? And some of the songs, I mean, they're just, oh my God, he said that on TV. I think. It's not quite as blatant as the Makibao ending song, right? But I mean, he's I mean, you know, Zorsan, right? He's singing about his dick, right? And he gets away with it on TV because it's Shogakusei. But looking back at the Bushido thing, I mean, there's some cute games, but basically, it's once again, it's the attention deficits, and
no, but like not to put it on too much of a tangent, because not that I want to interrupt with you, but the game that I particularly play sometimes, not like all the time, is Weiss Schwarz, which is a very
that's right, they're the top.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's their like bread and butter, and I would love for them to like make that into a mobile game, much like Shadowverse and a lot of other stuff, because there are things that'll, like Yu-Gi-Oh, I should just say. Yu-Gi-Oh exists as a physical card game and also as a digital one. That's what they should do with this property, but it'd be kind of hard for them. They actually go on not to grab their own characters that they've come up with, because like they haven't made much. Like Milky Holmes is one of their most popular, like totally in, like not in studio, but something unique to them, and it didn't exist if not for Bushido Road. But they also license a lot from Shaft and various other studios, where you could almost guess that if that studio put out a project, it would make its way into Bushido Road. And like there's a lot of things that you would never expect to be in there, like what was that like Love Key Lock show, Koi something Koi
Nisekoi,
yeah
there's a movie of that now.
Yeah, but it's like, how does that exist in this like fighting card game? But it does. Like they make characters around it. It doesn't really have to make. They have the formula written in such a way that the cards just kind of work off of perceived strength, and you're not really trying to come up with a reason with how these characters are being competitive. It's just a reason to draw, people in to play your game. I want to play the Nisekoi deck. I want to play the Kill la Kill deck. Evangelion existed a long time ago. I don't know if we got that in English or not, but like I said, they tend to align with certain studios, and I could typically guess what's going to show up based on not what they themselves make and produce, but also who they typically license with.
Booster pack, Kadokawa Sneaker Bunko.
Yeah.
Right. So that's your Haruhi, another rubber like that.
Yep.
Right. So basically, this game is a card game to sell more cards to sell more card game. So
yeah,
it's one big circle jerk.
Yep.
As long as the cards are cute, people will keep buying them because
it's the mechanic. The cards themselves don't have to be cute, because a lot of times the card art is based off like key visuals or promotional goods. Sometimes like in-game footage. Sometimes it's original art. Sometimes it's literally like screen captures from the anime itself. Like they're not too original there, so it's not the appearance of the card. It's just the commodity of like being able to play your favorite card game against other people's, like, or maybe not favorite, but like somewhat endeared series against other people's somewhat endeared series in a really fun way. For a card game, it's really balanced, and I've always liked it for that reason. But also, it's kind of like one of the son of a guns, because like, not to steer this conversation too far away, but like legitimate tournaments where like lots of money's at stake has been won by like trial decks before. So like little $15 deck you can buy at a store, versus people's like, blood, sweat, and tears thing they poured a bunch of money in to make. Like the game is so balanced that those generic decks have a shot.
Okay, so coming out in April is the booster pack Kadokawa Sneaker Bunko, containing 105 different cards and 46 parallel something or others. Right, you have to spend an awful lot of money.
Yep.
One pack contains 9 cards, 400 yen. Ignore packs now. One box contains 16 packs, that's 6,400 yen. One carton contains 18 boxes. Right.
Yeah, I know the buying styles. I used to know a lot of people who are really into it, and they would actually buy the cartons.
That's a lot of money.
Yep. Well, because I think they resell what they don't need. So like the premise is they get all of what they need, and then they can resell the crap that they don't.
Maybe. Okay, we've got.
Because largely outside of randomly collecting, I would usually actually just, instead of paying a lot of money to hope that I get the stuff that I got, since I'm not an avid buyer, I would literally just go and buy the cards for cheap online and like just build the deck through sheer buying. Because like a lot of the commons and rares, if you use them, they'd be like less than $1 per card.
All right. You guys can talk about the card game after.
After.
But let's go ahead actually end the hangout, because we're
never
to our mark. Thank you guys for joining us.
We have to outlast the Super Bowl. How much more time's in that? I'm not watching.
I don't know. But thank you for joining us. Thank you, Benny Evans, for joining.
Nice seeing you here.
Yeah. If you want to, I don't know how we're going to do this nowadays because of Google. So we'll probably be close to gone by the time we do the end of the season.
April 2nd, I think, is their shutdown, or like a date that you can no longer post things on.
April 2nd, that's like the day they sell the Silent Voice Blu-ray, right?
Oh, I don't know if a date on that was announced, but sure, could be.
They announced it at the theaters, so if you want to watch that,
I was waiting for that thing for so long. That took way too long to hit disc.
Yeah, well, they had an English dub it, so maybe
I know, but still.
But thank you everyone for joining us.
Oh,
and
hang on.
Catch what is it called?
You waiting? We usually like to do movie announcements. You totally made me just remember that. So I just wanted to say that the next Fate movie, The Heavens Feel, has an actual date now. So if you wanted to buy tickets. And I don't want to like check for new movies now, but I did learn of one more. So I will say at least the one that I did learn of. So going into Fate's Day night, what is it? Lost Butterfly That one I believe is March 7th, I think. 14th, sorry. So there's a U.S. premiere February 23rd, probably in California. If you're there, you might get some good goods if you could make it there. Nationwide release March 14th. So if you were interested in watching the second part of that, that's coming up. If you could buy your tickets now to make sure you have a good seat at theaters that you need to pick your seats for, those exist. The other film that I learned of, sorry, I'm actually pulling it up right now, is called Oko's Inn. From G Kids is announcing this one, so when tickets go on sale, they have a new site to sell tickets, but it'll also probably be on Fathom Events. It's coming in April, so a little bit closer. And, you know, I don't need this. I could say about its premise, but it's a film by Kitaro Kosaka. And if you want to look into a synopsis, I'd look it up on G Kids for Ako In.
All right, and
like Okami-sama Shogakse or something like that.
yeah, and then this week I think it's Eating Your Pancreas. So
yeah, that's literally coming up on like the 7th for the dub or for the sub showing, and a few days later for the dub.
Yeah,
But
so
we announced that one already.
So we're gonna end the broadcast. Join us if for our next anime talk. And
to hear old people ranting about random shows you've never heard of, then this is the place to be. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Or bye, B, as you say.
As you.